Do you have a website and want it to be found on Google? Do you want to bring relevant organic traffic to your website? Do you care about your site's performance on Google search? Do I hear yes? Well, you are in the right place. The upcoming Search Console training series is here to help. In this series, I'll guide you through everything you need to know to get up and running with Google Search Console in no time, from verification to reports and settings. I'll discuss how to monitor your site's search traffic, fix issues, and help users find your awesome website. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll explain the basics of Search Console and how it can help you succeed on search and the web in general. Search Console is a free tool from Google that helps website owners, SEO professionals, and developers understand how they're performing on Google search and what they can do to improve their appearance on search to bring more relevant traffic to their websites. Search Console is not a requirement for your site to appear on organic search results, but it can definitely help you monitor and optimize how Google crawls, indexes, and serves your website to users. If you're not acquainted with the terms crawling, indexing, and serving, you should read through our documentation. It will help you get the most out of this video series. Here are some things you can do in Search Console. Learn how Google crawls, indexes, and discovers your pages. Fix errors Google finds when crawling your pages. Submit updated content to the Google index. And monitor search performance trends by queries, countries, pages, and more. You might be asking yourself how you should be using Search Console, or what is the most relevant information for you. Here are some ideas, but don't worry if you don't understand all the terms. We'll discuss each of them separately in this video series. If you own a small website and you're responsible for maintaining it, but not as your main job, you should start simple. Check your search traffic in the performance report and try to understand which queries, pages, and countries are driving most of your traffic. If you're responsible for building or maintaining a large website, you should come to Search Console to check all your pages are indexed and have no errors. Check for indexing errors in the coverage report, the mobile usability report, the AMP report, and other enhancement reports, if any are shown to your website. If you're an SEO professional, well, you'll have lots of fun with Search Console. Depending on whether you're more focused on technical SEO, content development, strategy, or something else, you'll find important insights in the tool. I hope you enjoyed this video. There are many more to come. In the next video, I'll talk about how to activate Search Console for your site so that you can get access to your Google search data. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll talk about how to activate Search Console for your site so that you can get access to your Google search data. There are 7 ways to verify your site ownership in Search Console, providing you with a wide range of options to choose from. This video should help you find the method that works best for you. Verification is the process of proving to Google that you own a property. This is needed in order to make sure you are the owner of the website and to prevent others to see your private search data. Proving ownership on the web is simply demonstrating the ability to update and make a small, non-visible change to your website. If you're the site owner, this should be a very simple operation for you. It could literally take only a few minutes. As the title of the video suggests, Search Console supports 7 verification methods: DNS record, HTML file upload, HTML tag, Google Analytics tracking code, Google Tag Manager container script, Google Sites, and Blogger. First of all, for all methods described here, you'll start in the same place. Open your Search Console account and click Add Property in the Properties list. If you have never verified a property, The first time you log into Search Console, you'll find our special wizard asking you to verify a property. If it's your first or 10th verification, when you click to add a new property, you'll be asked what property type you want to create. You have two options: domain property and URL prefix property. I suggest creating at least one domain property to represent your site, as it is the most comprehensive view of your website information. It will include all URLs in all subdomains and across HTTP and HTTPS. It requires you to add a DNS record in your domain name provider, but it's worth your time. URL prefix property verification is usually a bit simpler, as you have multiple verification methods, such as using your existing Google Analytics or Tag Manager account. URL prefix properties also make sense if you want to view a section of your site separately. For example, if you work with a consultant on a specific part of your site, you might want to verify this part separately so that you can limit access to your data. Now, let's talk about each of the verification methods available to you. If you're feeling sleepy, now's the time to pause and go get a coffee. DNS verification requires you to add a DNS record in your domain name provider. This is the only method supported for domain properties. So I'll demonstrate DNS record verification by creating a domain property. But note that you can also use DNS record verification on URL prefix properties. Add your domain to the domain option as shown in the screen and click Continue. In the instructions dialog, you'll see two options. If your domain register is listed in the instructions dropdown, you'll be walked through an easier automated process to verify your site. For example, if your DNS provider is GoDaddy, choose it from the list and click Start Verification. This will lead you to their login page where you'll need the credentials used in GoDaddy. After logging in, click Authorize and you'll be redirected to Search Console. But don't worry if the verification doesn't work immediately. Just wait a few hours or a day and try verifying again by choosing it from the properties list. Sometimes DNS record changes can be slow. If your domain name provider is not in the list, you'll need to follow written instructions in the Help Center to copy your DNS text record into your domain provider. Start by copying the text record from the dialog after entering your domain. Then, click Full Details to open up the Help Center. You'll see the full process documented there. We have instructions for a lot of domain providers. Find yours in the list and click the link for more information. Now follow the instructions for your specific provider. If you're asked to provide a Google Security token, that's the token you copied from Search Console's verification dialog a minute ago. After you change your DNS record, go back to Search Console and click Verify in the verification pane. If the verification doesn't work immediately, wait a few hours or a day and try again, as the change may take some time to take effect. Just choose the unverified property from the Properties dropdown and it will try to verify you automatically. To stay verified, don't remove the DNS record, even after verification succeeds. If you perform the steps above and your verification does not succeed, check the full details link mentioned previously to learn about potential errors. You can find out more about those errors and how to handle them in the Help Center. In order to verify your website using HTML file upload, you'll need to have permission to upload a file to your website where it can be accessed by a browser. After you click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option and click Continue. Expand the HTML file section where you'll find the file download button. Download your HTML verification file and upload it to the root directory of the property you want to verify. For example, if you want to verify www.example.com, then the root directory is the homepage. If you want to verify www.example.com/party, then the root directory is /party/. In this case, you would upload the file to /party/ and all child directories would be verified. Note that you can use this file in any site you want to verify. It's personalized to your user and can be reused. Once you complete this step, click Verify in Search Console. If you perform the steps above correctly, verification should work immediately. If it doesn't, click the Full Details link to learn about potential errors. You can find out more about those errors and how to handle them in the Help Center. In order to verify your website with an HTML tag, you'll need permission to edit the source code of your website's homepage. After you click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option and click Continue. Expand the HTML tag section to find a meta HTML tag with a personalized key. Copy the tag and paste it into your homepage head tag. Make sure not to change the text. Verify that the tag is present on your live page by visiting your homepage and checking the page source text to confirm that the tag is present. Once you complete this step, click Verify in Search Console. If you perform the steps above correctly, verification should work immediately. If it doesn't, click the Full Details link to learn about potential errors. You can find out more about those errors and how to handle them in the Help Center. In order to verify your website using the Google Analytics tracking code, you'll need an account with Google Analytics that use the same Google account. You must have at least edit permission on the Google Analytics account. If you're not sure which permission you have, check the Google Analytics Help Center. Before verifying, ensure that your homepage has the Google Analytics tracking code in the head section of the page. Although your analytics tracking code might work for analytics in the body section as well, for Search Console verification, it must be in the head section. Open your homepage in a browser, look at the page source code, and confirm that the tag is present in the head tag of the page. After you click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option and click Continue. You must be logged into Search Console with the same Google account that you use for Google Analytics. If you perform the steps above correctly, verification should work immediately. If it doesn't, click the Full Details link to learn about potential errors. You can find out more about those errors and how to handle them in the Help Center. The Google Analytics tracking code will be used only to verify site ownership. No Google Analytics data will be accessed following this process. If you're looking to configure Search Console data in Analytics, that's an entirely separate process. Check the link below to learn more. In order to verify your website with the Google Tag Manager container snippet, you'll need publish permissions to your container in Google Tag Manager. You'll also need to be logged into Search Console with the same Google account that you use for Google Tag Manager. If you're not sure which permissions you have, check the Google Tag Manager Help Center linked below. Before verifying, ensure that your homepage has the no-script portion of the Tag Manager code immediately after the opening body tag. If it does not, verification will fail. Open your homepage in a browser, look at the page source code, and confirm that the tag is present, and immediately after the body tag with nothing in between. After you click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option and click Continue. Expand the Google Tag Manager section where you'll find a button to verify. If you have the necessary permission, your verification should work immediately after clicking it. If you perform the steps above correctly, verification should work immediately. If it doesn't, click the Full Details link to learn about potential errors. You can find out more about those errors and how to handle them in the Help Center. The Google Tag Manager container ID will be used only to verify site ownership. No Google Tag Manager data will be accessed following this process. In order to verify your classic Google site, you must be logged into Search Console with the same account used to manage your site. Click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option, and click Continue. That's it. Your Google site should be verified automatically after this step. If you have a new site or a site with a custom domain URL, you will not be automatically verified. If that's the case with your site, you should use the Google Analytics method. If you're not sure whether your site is classic or new, check the link below in the site's Help Center. In order to verify your website with Blogger, you must be logged into Search Console with the same account used to manage your blog. After you click Add Property, add your website URL under the URL prefix option and click Continue. That's it. Your blog should be verified automatically after this step. Wow, that was a lot. But before I leave you, I would like to suggest you to try and verify your website with more than one verification method, just in case one of your existing verification method fails. Verification methods are checked periodically by Google, and if all verification methods for a property fail, your access to that property will expire. But if you lose access to your account, don't worry, we have your back. You can always re-verify with your user or verify a new owner using one of the methods described in this video. Every Search Console property requires at least one verified owner, but I recommend companies to have more than one owner, as employees may change roles or leave the organization. So it's good practice to have several verified owners to Search Console. When it comes to security, account owners will always be able to see the list of all owners and users verified to that site, as well as the verification methods for each owner. You can then optionally unverify previous owners by removing their verification token. For example, removing the HTML tag from the site for HTML tag verified owners. Make sure to check your list of owners once in a while so that you remember to remove previous employees or agencies you have worked with in the past. That's it. Hopefully, now you have a better understanding of how to verify websites on Search Console. Now choose your method and get to work. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll talk about how to use Search Console to monitor your site's performance in Google Search. By the end of this video, you should be able to find data to answer important questions about your site. For example, how often people see your website in search results and click to visit it? What are the top search queries used to discover your site's content? Which countries, devices, and search features work best for your site? Those are just a few questions. Let's dive deeper and find even more interesting insights you can learn about your site's performance on Google Search. The performance reports are divided into two sections, Search and Discover. All accounts have data on Search. In addition, websites that have accumulated meaningful search traffic in Discover will see a report for it. In this video, I'll focus on search performance, as it is the most common use case. Before we go into the details of the report, I want to say a few words about metrics and dimensions, which are fundamental concepts to understand the data. Metrics are quantitative measurements. They are the numbers you see for each of the columns of a table or on a chart. They usually describe how much and how often. For example, in the performance report, you'll find 4 metrics. Impressions, the number of times your site appeared in a search result. Clicks, the total number of times users clicked from a search result to your website. Average click-through rate, or CTR, the percentage of impressions that result in a click. Average position, the average position of your site in search results, based on its highest position whenever it appeared in a search result. Dimensions are attributes of your data. They usually describe who did something or where it happened. For example, the dimension countries indicates the country where searches for your site originated, like United States or Japan. The dimension pages indicates the page that was viewed on a search or was clicked by a user. Note that pages refer to the canonical page, which means that if you have duplicate pages, only one of them will be shown. You can read more about it in our Help Center. The performance report is built out of 3 main elements: the filter bar, the chart, and the table. Let's start with the chart, as it's the most beautiful visual element. An image is worth 1,000 words. The first thing you need to know about the chart is that you can choose the metrics that you want to see, including impressions, clicks, average CTR, and average position. In order to see the trends for different metrics, you simply need to click the metrics themselves to add or remove them from the chart. Note that if you add or remove a metric, it will update both the chart and the table. The table element allows you to break down the metrics according to the possible dimensions that you can see just above the table: queries, pages, countries, etc. You can click each of those dimensions to see a table with the metrics for that dimension. For example, if you click countries, you will see a list of all countries where your site was shown in search results and how many clicks it generated. Here are 4 ideas on what to look for when analyzing your performance data. Low click-through rate. If the number of impressions is significantly higher than clicks, or, in other words, if the click-through rate or CTR is very low for a query or a page, you might need to create better titles and snippets in search results in order to make your site more attractive to users. Missing search queries. If search queries that you expect to see don't appear, your site might not have enough useful content relevant to those queries. Missing pages. If important pages on your site are not in the pages list, there might be an issue with them. In that case, you should use Inspect URL to find out why. We'll go over this tool in the next video. Branded search queries. Check how many queries show your site when the user does or doesn't include a specific string, such as your site's name. This might show interesting areas where people are searching for content directly related to your brand. I'll talk about how to use filters in a second. Those are just a few examples of what information you can learn from the default reports. But sometimes, checking the aggregate dimensions and metrics might not be enough. Filtering data can help you find interesting insights about your performance on search by helping you to explore a more specific scenario. To do so, use report filters. You'll find them just above the chart. Alternatively, you can simply click a relevant role in the table, such as a specific country. Doing that will filter the data in all the performance report to include only the clicked country. Let's try a filter. Click New on the filter bar above the chart. You'll be asked to choose a dimension for which you'd like to create the filter. You can currently add filters for each of the dimensions available on the tables, and also search type and date. Here are some filters that may help you understand your search traffic. Check what queries or pages are bringing traffic through image search results by adding a search type filter and choosing image. All the tabs in the report will update to provide you only image search results. You can then review the queries, the pages, and the countries that are working best for image search. Check the trends for desktop and mobile by adding a device filter. In this case, it might also make sense to use a comparison filter, choosing both mobile and desktop. This will add both devices to the chart and tables and allow an easy comparison between them. It might be interesting to look at a CTR comparison between mobile and desktop for queries, pages, and countries. This information can help you understand your search audience better. Check where your site is trending upwards and downwards by adding a country filter. Visit the Countries tab of the report and click the country with the highest amount of traffic. This will filter the entire report to include only this country. Check the pages and queries most common in this and other high traffic countries to inform your international targeting strategy and localization priorities. Note that when filtering by queries or pages, the results shown in the chart might not add up to the total shown in the table. For example, if you create a query filter not containing your brand name and another one containing your brand name, they'll probably not add up to the chart total. The reason is that there are some queries that are anonymized by Google for privacy reasons when filtering. In addition, there is a limit to how many queries the table can show. See the documentation to learn more about this. Another important detail about the data is that when looking at different parts of the performance report, part of the metrics is aggregated by site and part is aggregated by URL. These can generate a few discrepancies. I won't go over all the details, but I suggest you visit our Help Center article using the link below to better understand the data available. Well, I hope you learned a few tricks to understand and optimize your performance on Google search. In the next video, I'll go through the URL inspection, which is a valuable tool to help you understand how your page is appearing in search results. Or if not, why is it so? Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll talk about Search Console's URL inspection tool, which provides information about Google's indexed and live versions of a specific page on your site. This is one of the most important debugging tools to help you understand why your page might not be appearing the way you expect in search results. By the end of this video, you should be able to find out the current index status of your pages, test a live URL, ask Google to crawl a specific page, and view detailed information about the page's loaded resources and other information. You can access this tool from the top bar, from the navigation sidebar, or anywhere you see a little magnifying glass next to a URL in a table. Paste the full URL you want to check into the Inspect Search box in Search Console and press Enter. To use the URL inspection tool, the URL you're inspecting must be in the current property. Note that this tool can only be used for web pages and will only show results for web search. Once the page displays the results, you will see 3 different sections, all of them presenting information from Google's last crawl or crawl attempt, not from a live test of the page. In the Presence on Google card, you'll get a verdict on whether or not the URL can appear in Google search results. For example, your URL can return a response that the URL is on Google, which means you're good. Or you might learn that the URL is on Google but has issues, which means the URL has been indexed and can appear in Google search results, but there might be issues with structured data in the page. In the Covered section, you'll learn where the page was discovered, such as a sitemap or a referring page, when was the last crawl and by which user agent, and whether the page is included in the Google Web Index, or maybe another version of it was chosen as the canonical for the Google Index. For example, here you might discover that a specific page is currently submitted in your sitemap, but marked as no index, or that there is a server error on your side and Google couldn't reach a number of pages. In the Enhancement section, you'll find any structured data details, along with AMP and mobile usability warnings and errors. For example, if your page is not marked up properly with structured data, the inspection will return an error detailing the missing or wrong values. You can learn more about each of the sections in the Search Console Help Center. Once you get the current page status, you'll have 3 main actions to perform. First, you can click Test Live URL to see if the page can be indexed by Google. This runs a test against the live page for information similar to the indexed URL. This is very useful to test live if an issue still exists even after you've fixed it in your site. If you want to see a live rendered version of your page by Google, this is the only place you'll find it. This test confirms whether Googlebot can access your page for indexing. However, even if a live test is positive, your page must still fulfill other conditions in order to be indexed, such as following the Webmaster Guidelines. Second, you can click Request Indexing for Google to reindex your page if you make changes to it. For example, if you fix the structured data error, enhance your mobile usability, or performed a major change in the page, you might want to request indexing. And third, you can view more information about the tested page by clicking View Crawled Page. This will show the retrieved HTML and more info about the HTTP response and page resources loaded. Wow, that really is interesting. I hope now you understand how to inspect a URL to get information about Google's indexed version of a specific page on your site. That might come really handy when analyzing your search efforts on Google. In the next episode, I'll talk about how to monitor your search appearance, where to find errors in your structured data, and how to ask Google to validate fixes you've done to your site. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll talk about how to use Search Console to monitor and optimize your performance with Google Rich Results. By the end of this video, you will understand what are rich results, how to monitor your rich results appearance on Google search, where to find errors in your structured data, and how to ask Google to validate fixes you've done to your website. But before I go into the nuts and bolts of Search Console, I would like to say a few words about structured data and rich results, as an introduction if you haven't heard about it, or to refresh your memory. When you search on Google, you can see many kinds of results, including blue links with text snippets and rich results. For example, if you search for a venue or a music band, you may get results that show you nearby events. Or if you search for falafel recipes, you may get instructions on how to cook it. Those are examples of rich results. If you own a website, you might want to trigger these types of results for your site, as they can be more attractive to users. For that, you'll need to implement structured data markup. Check our developer documentation to find out more about what, how, and why to implement structured data. In a nutshell, here's how your decision-making process should look like. Review the search gallery examples. Find a structured data type that matches your content. Check guidelines and requirements to be eligible to appear on search. Implement the markup on your pages. After you do that, you can start using Search Console to help optimizing your implementation and monitoring your performance. In addition to the Search Console interface, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can also use a public structured data testing tool called Rich Results Test. This tool can verify the syntax of your structured data and in some cases provide a sample of what the result might look like in Google search. You can either upload a piece of code or check a specific URL for Google to crawl. The tool shows whether your implementation has any errors. You'll also have an option to preview your page's search appearance on Google search results and how it would be seen by Googlebot. Checking your own code can be very handy during development cycles to make sure your structured data is valid even before you move to production. Over time, as the pages with structured data are indexed by Google, Search Console will start showing reports for those structured data types. After setting up your pages and seeing them get indexed, your next step is to monitor their performance. Let's run through an example of how you check your rich result performance on your site. First, open Search Console and navigate to the Performance report. Select Search Appearance in the tabs just below the main chart. You'll see in a glance the volume of traffic coming to your website through rich results. In order to understand your rich results performance over time, add a filter to the report, including only rich results. You can do that by clicking the Rich Results row in the table. This will update your performance charts to show your rich results traffic by queries, pages, countries, and devices. You might find patterns in your data that show how important or how unimportant a specific segment of traffic is. Perhaps a specific group of queries or pages are not driving rich results, which could point at opportunities to enhance your structured data implementation. Additionally, you might notice a drop in rich results performance if your structured data implementation was affected by a website change. Once you have a better idea of your overall performance, you should take a closer look into each specific structured data report in order to learn about warnings and errors that Google has encountered in your website. Errors disqualify your rich results from being shown in Google search, but you may still be shown through a standard plain blue link. Warnings can provide a somewhat reduced experience for users. When Search Console detects structured data for one of the supported rich results types on your website, it will create a report for it summarizing all errors and warnings, and it will send an email to account owners. But if an existing issue gets worse, it won't trigger an email. So it is important for you to check your account periodically. This is not something you need to do every day, but I recommend you check it once in a while to make sure everything is working as intended. For example, if your website development has defined cycles, it might be a good idea to log into Search Console after changes are made to the website to check that nothing broke down. You'll find the structured data reports under the Enhancements section in the sidebar. You will see a report only if Search Console has data for that rich result type on your site, and Search Console offers a report for that type. Open a structured data type summary report you have access to. By default, you'll see the trends for error items in the main chart, but you can also click Valid with warnings and Valid to check their trends at the chart and more details in the table. The bar chart is great for monitoring trends over time, but you'll probably want to check the details in the table below the chart, which provides the specific issues that Google found in your website. To get more details on a specific issue, click one of the errors to open a detailed report. Here, you'll see the date when the error was detected, the number of errors over time, and examples of pages where Google detected it. You can click a specific example page to check instances of the error in your HTML code. Now that you know what needs to be fixed, you have two options. Make the required code change yourself, or share the details with a developer that can perform code changes to your website. You can do that by grabbing a link using the Share button. After you or your developer have fixed the error, click Validate Fix, and Google will validate your changes. There are quite a few types of errors and warnings, so if you don't understand what's wrong, check the developer documentation on the specific structured data type you implemented. You can find a list of them in the search gallery. Before I leave you to work on your property, I want to mention one last report: unparsable structured data. If Google finds structured data that, for some reason, breaks while parsing the page before it can even identify the rich result type, it will show that item as an error in the unparsable structured data report. Parsing issues could point you to lost opportunities for rich results for your site. You should fix the errors in this report to get the benefits of structured data. Once they're fixed, the page structured data will be added to Google, or, in case there is still an issue, it will show up in the respective structured data report. That's it for today. Hopefully, you'll be more comfortable to monitor and optimize your rich results from now on. In the next episode, I'll talk about how to use Search Console to improve your AMP implementation and make your site more usable. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll talk about how to use Search Console to improve your AMP implementation. By the end of this video, you should be able to find AMP issues Google discovered in your website, fix them, and ask Google to validate your fixes. Before I discuss the Search Console reports, I would like to give a quick intro to AMP, just in case you're not familiar with it. AMP, or Accelerated Mobile Pages, is an open source HTML framework that provides a straightforward way to create web pages that are fast, smooth loading, and prioritize the user experience. It can be used to easily create websites, stories, ads, and more. There are several reasons to use the AMP framework. Web page speed improves the user experience and core business metrics. Building AMP pages is simple and reduces developer overhead. AMP has lots of components that can be used as website building blocks, and they're already optimized for best performance. Besides the general benefits of the AMP framework, there are additional benefits for AMP on Google Search, such as serving from the Google Cache and more opportunities to appear in AMP-related experiences. If you want to learn more about how AMP looks in Google Search results, check our developer documentation linked in the video description. When Google detects AMP on your website, you'll see a report in Search Console detailing any AMP issues that Google found on your pages. That can be really handy when reviewing your AMP implementation. It will help you focus your efforts on the most important tasks. The top-level view shows crawled AMP pages with any issues found by Google. The default chart shows the trends for AMP errors, but you can click Valid with warnings and Valid to see their trends too. In addition, you will see a checkbox to add the number of impressions your AMP pages got on search. This can be very helpful to understand how issues affect your results. Below the chart, you'll find a table with issues grouped by type. AMP pages that show an error cannot be shown in search results. For example, your AMP page is blocked by robots text, custom JavaScript is not allowed, or the HTML tag has an invalid layout specified by its attributes. AMP pages with warnings are indexed and can be shown in Google search results, but they might not be shown in AMP reach results or the top stories carousel. Warnings include non-optimal pages or use of deprecated features that may become errors in the future. Valid AMP pages work as expected for users and can be included in AMP-related features. So if everything is green, it means you're doing a great job. By default, issues are sorted by a combination of severity, validation state, and number of pages affected. If you see an error that seems like a result of a bad template, fix it first. Then continue fixing other issues that are unique to each page. Click a specific issue to see more details, with a link to learn more about how to fix it and a process to notify Google about your fixes, which I'll talk about in a minute. You'll also find a list of example URLs affected by this issue. You can click a specific URL to find the HTML and exact location of the offending code. If you want to see a full list of errors for a specific URL that is shown in the report, click the inspect icon next to the URL. This will open the URL inspection already discussed in this video series. This test pinpoints all errors, not just the current issue, and provides a code explorer highlighting the errors and providing more information. It is possible that an error has been fixed in the live page, but is still listed as an error because it has not been recrawled. You can check that by testing the live version of your page in the URL inspection results. If that's the case, request validation through the AMP issue page. Now that you know what needs to be fixed, you have two options. Make the required code changes yourself, or share the details with a developer that can perform code changes to your website. You can do that by grabbing a link using the share button from any issue page. Note that the sharing link grants access only to the current page, plus any validation history pages for this issue. It does not grant access to other pages for your resource, or enable the shared user to perform any actions on your property or account. You can revoke the link at any time by disabling sharing for this page. It might also be a good idea to use the AMP test tool, where in addition to testing a specific page, you can also upload a piece of code to check for issues. This can be helpful to debug issues for new pages. But note that the tool will check your general AMP implementation, without specific information about Google indexing. After you or your developer fix the error, confirm the fix by inspecting the live version of the page. Then, click Validate Fix from the AMP issue page, and Google will validate your changes. The validation process can take several days, and you'll receive progress notifications by email. If the current instance exists in a sample of pages, validation ends, and the validation state remains unchanged. If the sample pages do not have the current error, validation continues with state started. When all error or warning URLs have been checked and the issue count is 0, the issue state changes to passed. You can see the progress of a validation request by clicking the validation details link in the issue details page. To learn more about the AMP issues on your pages, missing pages troubleshooting, validation stages, and other details about this report, visit the Search Console Help Center. I hope this video helped you understand how to optimize your website by improving AMP warnings and errors. Your users will thank you for that. In the next episode, I'll talk about how to use Search Console to submit sitemaps to Google, how to review your sitemap submission history, and how to find errors that Google encountered when parsing your submitted sitemaps. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google, and today I'll talk about how to use the Search Console Sitemaps report. By the end of this video, you should be able to understand what a sitemap is, decide whether you need one or not, and learn how to submit a sitemap and track its status using Search Console. A sitemap is a signal about which URLs you would like Google to crawl on your site. It may provide information on URLs that were recently created or modified and give us some extra information about them. Google supports 4 main ways for you to provide additional information. You can extend a URL with images included in it. You can also extend a URL with videos included in it. You can include information about alternate languages or country versions with hreflang annotations. And finally, for new sites, you can use a special variation of sitemaps to give us information about the most recent updates. Note that this information won't necessarily be highlighted on Search Console, but you can still provide it in your sitemap.
But if I don't have a sitemap, will Google find all my pages?
I'm glad you asked, John. Usually, if you have a relatively small website and your pages are properly linked, Googlebot can discover your content, so you don't need to worry about a sitemap. However, if your site meets one of the following criteria, a sitemap might help Google decide what and when to crawl your website. If your site is really large, a sitemap will help Google prioritize the URLs to crawl. If your pages are isolated or not well linked to each other, a sitemap might help Google find those pages. If your site is new, or it has a lot of quickly changing content, such as a news website, a sitemap will help Google discover your content. Please remember that using a sitemap doesn't guarantee that all your pages will be crawled and indexed. But in most cases, your site will benefit from having a sitemap, and there is no disadvantage for having one. In addition, sitemaps don't replace normal crawling, and not including URLs in a sitemap won't result in those URLs no longer being crawled.
Interesting. I might need a sitemap, but how can I create one?
Another great question, John. Ideally, the system running your website will make sitemap files for you automatically. For example, you can find a WordPress plugin or Drupal extension if you use those content management systems. Check the documentation from your provider, as every platform is slightly different. We recommend finding a way to automatically generate sitemaps, rather than creating them manually. Usually, this will involve running code on your server, so if you're not a developer, you might need help from one. There are limits to the number of URLs and the maximum size of a sitemap file. If you need more space, you can make multiple sitemap files. You can also submit all of these sitemap files together in the form of an index sitemap file. Doing that makes it a bit easier to track them all together in one place. To learn more about sitemaps formats and guidelines, check our Help Center. Before I go into Search Console, please note that the Sitemaps report shows only sitemaps that you submitted using Search Console. It does not show any sitemaps discovered through a robots text reference or other discovery methods. However, even if we already discovered a sitemap through other means, you can still submit it using this report in order to track errors and warnings. So let's look at the report. Open Search Console and find the Sitemaps report. If you have already submitted one or more sitemaps, you'll find the following information about each sitemap that you submitted: the sitemap URL, the type or format of sitemap, such as XML, text, RSS, or Atom, the last submission date using this report, the date it was last read by Google, the crawl status, such as success, has errors, couldn't fetch, and others, the number of URLs discovered in the sitemap. You will note an icon next to each successful sitemap. Clicking it will lead you to the index covered status report for the specific sitemap. I'll talk about this report in the next episode. But sitemaps can also be partially read, even if they have errors. If your sitemap status is success, good job. If you have any errors in the status column, click the specific row to see more details. You'll find a complete list of errors and what to do in each case in the Search Console Help Center. If you want to submit a new sitemap, simply open the Sitemaps report and submit the URL. You will need owner permission for a property in order to submit it. If you submitted a sitemap but it's not relevant anymore, you can delete it from Search Console. But know that deleting a sitemap removes it from this report, but doesn't make Google forget the sitemap or any URLs listed on it. In order for Google to forget a sitemap, just remove it from your site and return a 404. After some attempts, Google will give up and completely stop refreshing the sitemap. But this has nothing to do with the URLs in the sitemap. If you truly need Google to stop visiting the URLs listed in a sitemap, you will need to return a 404 or use a robots.txt rule for the URLs that you want to block. This is what you would do in order for Google to stop crawling this page. If your goal is to remove the URL from the Google index altogether, you should either use the no index directive or require HTTP authentication for users to see your page. I hope this video helped you understand when you should use a sitemap and how Search Console can help you. In the next episode, I'll talk about how to use Search Console to check which of your pages have been indexed and any problems found during that process. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll talk about how to use Search Console to learn which of your pages have been crawled and indexed by Google, and any problems found during that process. Crawling is the process by which Googlebot discovers new and updated pages to be added to the Google index. Googlebot processes each of the pages it crawls in order to compile a massive index of all the words it sees and their location on each page. When a user enters a query, Google machines search the index for matching pages and return the results we believe are the most relevant to the user. The index coverage report, discussed in this video, will give you an overview of all the pages Google indexed or tried to index in your website. To learn more about how indexing works, read through our documentation. It will help you get the most out of this video series. Check the links in the description. Before I go into the report, I want to say a few words about when and how often you should check the index coverage status report. If Search Console detects a new index coverage issue on your website, you will get an email. But if an existing issue gets worse, you won't. This means that you don't need to check the coverage report every day, but keep an eye once in a while to make sure that nothing is going from bad to worse. When you open the index coverage report, the first page you see is the summary page. The default view shows indexing errors on your website, but you can click to show valid with warnings, valid, and excluded. In addition, you will find a checkbox to add to the main chart the number of impressions your pages got on search. Here's what each status means with some examples. Errors prevent pages from being indexed. Pages with errors won't appear in Google search results, which can mean a loss of traffic to your website. For example, you might get an error when you submitted a page containing the no index directive. Additionally, Google might find a server error, or your page might be returning a 404. All these cases would prevent the page from appearing on search results. Issues on pages you submit via sitemaps are explicitly called out, since they're most likely to be problems we should resolve. Valid with warnings are pages that may or may not be shown on Google search results, depending on the issue, but we think there is a problem that you should look into. For example, Google might find pages that are indexed, though blocked by robots.txt. This is marked as a warning because we're not sure if you intended to block the page from search results. If you do want to block this page, robots.txt is not the correct mechanism to avoid being indexed. To do so, you should either use the no index directive or request HTTP authentication to see your page. Valid pages have been indexed and can be shown on search results. No need to do anything. Excluded pages were not indexed and won't appear in Google. But either we think that is your intention, or we think it's the right thing to do. For example, the page have the no index directive, your choice, or the page is a duplicate of another page, Google's choice. or the page is simply not found and returns a 404 error. For a more comprehensive list of issues, check our Help Center. In the summary page, you should start by checking the chart to learn if your valid pages trend is somewhat steady. Some amount of fluctuation is natural, and if you're aware of content being published or removed, you might see that reflected here. Let's take a look at the errors list now, as they are the most pressing issues. The table is sorted by severity and the number of affected pages, so start investigating at the top of the list. If your site doesn't have any errors, you can also follow along with any of the other tabs. Click the top issue to drill down into the issue details. The details page shows an overtime distribution of all pages suffering from this issue and provides a list of examples that you can check more closely. You'll also find a link to learn more about the error in the Search Console Help Center. In addition, you should click an example URL and inspect it. This will show all the details available for a specific page, as explained in the URL inspection episode of this series. Try both the indexed and live versions. What you see in the index coverage report reflects the index data in URL inspection, and it might differ from the live test result. Watch the URL inspection episode to learn more about it. Once you understand what needs to be fixed, you have two options: make the required changes yourself, or share the details with a developer that can perform code changes to your website. You can do that by grabbing a link using the Share button. The link grants access only to the current page, plus any validation history pages for this issue. It does not grant access to other pages for your resource, or enable the shared user to perform any actions on your property. You can revoke the link at any time by disabling sharing for this page. After you or your developer have fixed the error on all your pages, click Validate Fix, and Google will validate your changes. That's the index coverage status report. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll show you how to request your content to be temporarily hidden in Google search results using the Removals report in Search Console. And I'll also talk about the ways to review requests made by other users to remove outdated or inappropriate content on your site. Before I go into Search Console capabilities, I would like to stress that the tool should only be used for temporary removal requests. You must take additional steps in order for your content to be removed permanently. I'll talk about permanent removal of pages from search at the end of this video, but check the links in the description for more detailed information. In addition, you cannot use the tool to remove personal information, report offensive information, or doing anything but managing search results from your own website. To remove information from Google from the web in general for content you don't control, check the links in the description. Now that we're aligned on what can be removed and for how long, let's talk about the Removals report in Search Console. That's the reason we got together today. The Removals report is divided into three main sections: temporary removals, outdated content, and safe search filtering requests. Let's go over each of them in more detail to help you understand how to use them effectively. A temporary removal request is a way to remove specific content on your site from Google search results. For example, if you have a URL that you need to take off Google search quickly, you should use this tool. A successful request lasts only about 6 months, which should be enough for you to find a solution to either allow the content to be seen or to remove it permanently. When you log into Search Console, you'll find the Removals report in the navigation bar. Select the Temporary Removals tab, if it's not already selected, to submit a new removal request. Then click New Request. You have two types of requests available. Temporarily remove URL will block the URL from Google search results for about 6 months. This will also clear the cached copy of the page. Use this option as a quick first step when permanently blocking a page from Google search results. Clear cached URL clears the cached page and wipes out the page description snippet in search results until the page is scrolled again, when the snippet is generated from the new content. Until the next scroll, the page description will be empty in search results. Use this option when you remove sensitive information from a page and want to update your results snippet in Google search, without removing the page itself from search. Be sure that you've removed the sensitive information from your page before clicking this, or else Google will just recrawl the page and find the same content. For each of these two options, you can submit a request for a single specific URL or for an entire URL prefix. Make sure you think twice before submitting a request for an entire prefix, so that you don't unintentionally block pages that are important to you. In the temporary removal section, you'll find a summary of the page removals requested through this report in the past 6 months. You'll see the URL, the request type, the date requested, and the status. You can also use this report to cancel a request if it's no longer necessary. The outdated content section provides information on removal requests made through the public Remove Outdated Content tool, which can be used by anyone to update search results showing information that is no longer present on a page. This is something that you probably won't need to look at much, since Google users can't force your pages from search using this tool. There are two types of requests. Outdated cache removal is used when the page still exists, but some content has been removed. Google clears the page snippet in the search result until the next scroll, and searches for the removed content will no longer show this page. Outdated page removal is used when the page no longer exists, and a user has requested its removal from the Google search results. The report table shows the history of all submitted requests for this property in the past 6 months using the public Remove Outdated Content. I won't go into the tool in this video, but you can check the links in the description to learn more about it. Whether you're using search at work, with your family, or for yourself, Safe Search can help filter most sexually explicit results. In addition to setting your personal account preferences, parents can turn on the filter for their kids' supervised devices, and workplaces or schools can turn on the filter at the network level. The Safe Search filtering section in Search Console shows a history of pages on your site that were reported by Google users as adult content using the Safe Search suggestion tool. URLs submitted using this tool are reviewed, and if Google feels that this content should be filtered from Safe Search results, these URLs are tagged as adult content. The report table shows the history of all submitted Safe Search requests for this property in the past 6 months. Check the links in the description to learn more about it. Permanent removals should not really be part of this video, since it's not requested or reported via Search Console. But since we're talking so much about temporary removals, I thought a short explanation might be in order. To remove content from Google search permanently, you must take one or more of the following actions. Remove or update the actual content from your site and return either a 404 or 410 HTTP status code. Non-HTML files, like PDFs, should be completely removed from your server. Block access to the content, for example, by requiring a password. And use a no-index meta tag to indicate that the page should not be indexed. This is less secure than the other methods. Please note that simply redirecting an old page with a 301 response is not enough to remove it from Google search results. And neither will a robots text directive work as a blocking mechanism. And that's it. We're done for today. Hopefully now you understand how to request to remove specific content on your site from Google search results. And also how to track these requests along with other user removal requests related to your site. In the next episode, I'll talk about how to use Search Console to check security issues on your website. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google.
And I'm Aurora Morales from the Trust and Safety team.
What? How did you get here? It's a security breach.
Wanna check my ID?
In a bit. At the moment, I could do with some help explaining the security issues report in Search Console that alerts webmasters about malicious behavior on their websites. And since your team protects Google users, including Google Search, would you be up for that?
Por supuesto. The Search Console Security Issues Report shows warnings when Google finds that your site might have been hacked or used in ways that could potentially harm a visitor or their device. For example, a hacker might inject malicious code in your pages to redirect your users to another site or to automatically create pages with nonsensical sentences filled with keywords on your site. These are examples of website hacking. An attacker might also trick users into doing something dangerous, such as revealing confidential information or downloading malicious software. That is called social engineering. When a site has been compromised to manipulate search rankings, it can be labeled as "this site may be hacked" to warn users in search results. When a site has been compromised to harm users, browsers with Google Safe Browsing technology enabled may display interstitial warning pages or alerts when files are downloaded. For example, to warn users when they are about to access malicious websites. Google Safe Browsing also labels results in search, such as "this site may harm your computer." In the next video, I'll go through some of the most common security issues that Google sees on websites, so make sure you don't miss it. To learn more about the subject, you can also check the links in the description. Now, Daniel will show you how to find the affected pages on your website and how to use Search Console to fix them.
When Google detects a security issue on a website, Search Console verified site owners will receive an email alerting them about this issue with a link to more information on how to solve it. Read your emails carefully. It's important that you see these alerts as soon as possible. Even if you miss an email, you can always log into Search Console to check if you have any issues. In the overview page, you'll already be notified if you have security issues on your site through a banner at the top of the page. Clicking the alert will lead you to the Security Issues report, where you'll find a list of all security issues related to your website. Google does its best to check sites for the most common security issues, but you should still keep your eyes open. You can also navigate to the Messages panel and choose the Security Issues category to see all related messages that have been sent to your website in the past. This can give you context on your website history, especially if you're new to a company or took over an existing website. To fix a security issue on your site and let Google know, we recommend the following steps. Expand the security issue description panel to learn more about the issue and follow the Learn More link for detailed information and steps to fix it. After you read about it, decide whether you think this is something you can fix. If not, find someone on your team or externally that has web development experience or visit the Webmaster Help forums. Use the sample of affected pages provided in the details section to troubleshoot and fix your issue. You might have a security issue with no example URLs. This doesn't mean that no pages are affected, only that we couldn't generate samples for that specific case. Fix the issue throughout your entire website. Fixing it on just some pages will not solve the problem, so make sure you leave no pages behind. If the report lists multiple security issues, fix all of them. When all issues listed in the report are fixed in all pages, select Request Review in the Security Issues report and describe your fixes in your review request. A good request does three things. It explains the exact issue on your website, it describes the steps you've taken to fix the issue, and it documents the outcome of your efforts. Check out John's latest video on web spam manual actions and reconsideration requests for more on that. Most reviews take a few days, but some can take up to a week or two. You'll get a review confirmation message when you submit your request to inform you that the review is in progress. You'll also get a message when the review is completed. There is no need to submit another review request before you get a final decision on your outstanding request. If you can't see hacked content on the URLs provided in Search Console, this might be an example of cloaking. Cloaking makes cleaning a website more difficult because it shows different content to users than it does to search engines. For example, a page on your site may not have visible hacked content to you. This might lead you to believe that there is no hacked content and that Search Console is sending you wrong messages. However, a search engine like Google accessing the same page might be served hidden spammy text and links. Check the links in the description to learn more about cloaking.
In this video, we shared an overview of security issues and the process you need to follow to fix them on Search Console.
Previously on Search Console Training.
The Search Console Security Issues Report shows warnings when Google finds that your site might have been hacked or used in ways that could potentially harm a visitor or their device.
When Google detects a security issue on a website, Search Console verified site owners will receive an email alerting them about this issue with a link to more information on how to solve it. Read your emails carefully. It's important that you see these alerts as soon as possible. Welcome back to the 2-episode special on security issues in Search Console. In this second part, Aurora will go deeper into hacking and social engineering. Enjoy!
There are many different types of hacks. The most common one is URL injection that can happen through stolen credentials or outdated software. Once hackers gain unauthorized access to the CMS or the hosting service of a website, they can remove, modify, or add content, steal user data, or exploit the reputation of the website for their own commercial purposes. I'll focus on 3 forms of hacking through injection of URLs, content, or code. Injections usually result in harming the user experience and trust, damaging the reputation of the website. URL injection happens when a hacker creates new pages on a site containing spammy links. These links redirect users to other sites. Content injection happens when a hacker adds unrelated content to a site's pages, such as spammy keywords or gibberish text. Code injection happens when a hacker injects code to a website to change its behavior, for example, by sending spammy emails. Typically, hackers take control of a website in one of these ways. By gaining access to an insecure directory on a server. For example, you may have forgotten about a directory that has open permissions. By exploiting a vulnerability in a software running on a site, such as a content management system. For instance, you might be running an older, insecure version of your CMS. By hacking third-party applications, such as plugins or widgets on a site.
Wow! So a lot of security issues come from outdated software and bad credential management?
Yes. Hackers usually look for technical signals to assess if a website is well protected or not. If they see that a website is running an outdated version, they might exploit a known vulnerability.
I'm gonna check if I need all those plugins if they're really updated.
Oh, wait. I haven't told you about social engineering yet.
Social engineering?
Social engineering tricks users into doing something dangerous online, such as revealing confidential information or downloading malicious software. Phishing is an example of social engineering. Google Safe Browsing protects users by warning them before they visit deceptive websites or download harmful files. If Google Safe Browsing detects that your website has deceptive content, the Chrome browser may display a deceptive site ahead warning when visitors click to access your site. To learn more about Google's work in this field, check the Safe Browsing and Transparency Report links in the video description. Search Console will alert you by email if we think any of the pages on your site contain social engineering content. But take a quick look at your security issues report once in a while, just to be on the safe side. Pun intended. Some examples of social engineering are deceptive content. Your site tries to trick visitors into doing something they'd only do for a trusted entity. For example, sharing a password or a credit card number. Deceptive ads. Your site contains ads that falsely claim that device software is out of date, prompting users into installing unwanted software. Since deceptive content makes you believe that it is the original source, it may try to trick you into sharing your sensitive data.
But I don't fall for those tricks.
Well, you may not fall for obvious phishing attacks, but deceptive content such as fake download buttons may try to trick you to download malware. In addition to social engineering warnings, we also report on other security issues. On common downloads, your site offers a download that Google Safe Browsing hasn't seen before. Chrome may warn those who download it that it could be dangerous. These warnings are lifted automatically if Google Safe Browsing verifies that the files are safe. Harmful downloads. Your site offers users a download that Google Safe Browsing thinks is either malware or unwanted software. Browsers, such as Chrome, may show a warning when a user visits your site. To remove this warning, you must remove the links to harmful sites. Unclear mobile billing. Your site is not sufficiently informing users about mobile charges. Chrome may display a warning before the user loads a page that incurs in these charges. Malware. Your site has been infected by or is hosting malware from a hacker. This can be software, a mobile application, or a script specifically designed to harm a device when a user knowingly or unknowingly installs it. You can find out more about malware issues and how to fix them in the Assessing Malware documentation linked in the description.
So, remember, pay attention to the Security Issues report in Search Console. It may contain important information regarding the security of your site and your users. And as a user, beware of social engineering. Pay attention to warnings and don't fall for deceptive content and harmful downloads. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll talk about how to use Search Console to check if your site has any Google Search manual actions issued against it. This is important because if a site has a manual action, some or all of that site might not be shown in Google search results. By the end of this video, you should be able to find out if your website has any pages affected by manual actions, and if so, how to fix them and request Google to review your changes. Google is constantly working to improve search. That's why changes to our algorithms undergo extensive quality evaluation before being released. The algorithms are extremely good at detecting spam, and in most cases, they automatically clean it up from search results. To further improve search results quality, Google also scans sites for cases where its policy and guidelines are not kept. In these cases, a human might review a website and apply a manual action. Following the application of a manual action, relevant pages or entire websites may be ranked lower or completely omitted from search results. There are quite a few manual action types that you might see in Search Console, so I won't go over all of them. But here are some of the most common ones. For a comprehensive list, visit the Help Center article linked from the description. Pure spam stands for what webmasters usually call black hat SEO, and it includes complex techniques such as hosting auto-generated gibberish pages, cloaking, scraping, and other shady practices. Thin content with little or no added value is issued to websites that appear to contain a significant percentage of low quality or shallow pages that do not provide users with much added value. Structured data issues are applied to websites where some of the markup is using techniques that are outside our structured data guidelines. For example, marking up content that is invisible to users, marking up irrelevant or misleading content, or other manipulative behavior. If your site is affected by a manual action, you'll receive an email notification from Search Console to alert you. Click the link provided in the message to visit the Manual Actions report in Search Console. Even if you miss an email, you can always log into Search Console to check if you have any issues. In the overview page, you'll already be notified if you have manual actions on your site. Click the alert to find a list of all manual actions issued against your site and more information about them. You can also navigate to the Messages panel to see all manual action messages that have been sent to your website in the past. This might give you context on your website history, especially if you're new to a company or took over an existing website. Here's how to fix a manual action on your site. Expand the manual action description panel on the report to learn more about the issue and, in some cases, to review a sample of pages affected. Follow the Learn More link to see detailed information and steps to fix the issue. Fix the issue on all affected pages. Fixing it on just some pages will not solve the problem, so make sure you leave no pages behind. When you believe all issues listed in the report have been fixed or are not applicable, click Request Review. A good request does three things. It explains the exact quality issue on your site, it describes the steps you've taken to fix the issue, and it documents the outcome of your efforts. You'll get a review confirmation message when you send your request and another one when Google reviews it and accepts or rejects your request. No need to resubmit your request before you get a final decision on your outstanding request. If you recently bought a site that violated our guidelines before you owned it, fix the issues listed in this report. Then, let us know in your review request that you recently acquired the site and that it now adheres to the guidelines. Don't just remove the old bad content. Be sure to add your new good content before requesting a review. Now that I discussed both security issues and manual actions reports in this series, I thought I would clarify the difference between them, because there is some conceptual overlap. The manual actions report lists manually detected issues that are mostly attempts to manipulate Google search index, but are not necessarily dangerous for users. As a result, most manual actions reported here will result in a group of pages or the entire site to rank lower or drop from search results without any visual indication to the user on search. The security issues report shows instances where your site was hacked, or behavior on your site that could potentially harm a visitor. For example, phishing attacks or installing malware on the user's computer. These pages can appear with a warning label in search results, or a browser can display an interstitial warning page when a user tries to visit them. I hope that helps clarifying the subject. That's all for today. I hope you have a better understanding of what are manual actions, how to fix them with the help of Search Console, and how to request Google to review pages you have fixed. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google, and today I'll talk about how to use Search Console if you're a developer. Since the tool provides a lot of information about search optimization, developers may think it's not useful to them. But I beg to differ. In this video, I'll talk about the most useful Search Console reports to help developers build websites that are healthy, findable, and optimized for Google search. In summary, use the Index Coverage Report to understand site-wide search indexing issues. Use the URL inspection tool to debug page-level search indexing issues. Use the Security Issues Report to find and fix issues affecting your site. And use the Core Web Vitals report to make sure your website provides a great page experience to your users. The first thing that is really important for you to know is whether Google can find and crawl your pages. Small glitches can have a massive effect when it comes to Googlebot being able to read websites. For example, sometimes we see companies accidentally adding no index tags to entire websites, or blocking the content from being crawled through an error on the robots text file. These issues can be easily uncovered using the Index Coverage Report. When you open the report, the first page you see is the summary page. The default view shows indexing errors on your website, but you can click to show valid with warnings, valid, and excluded pages. In addition, you will find a checkbox to add to the main chart the number of impressions your pages got on search. Here's what each status means with some examples. Errors prevent pages from being indexed. Pages with errors won't appear in Google, which can mean a loss of traffic to your website. For example, your page might be returning a 404 or a 500 level error. Additionally, you might get an error if you submitted a page through a sitemap, but it contains a no index directive. All these cases would prevent the page from appearing on search results. Valid with warnings are pages that may or may not be shown on Google, depending on the issue, but we think there is a problem you should look into. For example, Google might find pages that are indexed, though blocked by robots text. This is marked as a warning because it's not clear if you intended to block the page from search results. If you do want to block the page, robots text is not the best way to avoid being indexed. To do so, you should either use the no index directive or request authentication to see the page. Valid pages have been indexed and can be shown on Google search, so good job. Excluded pages were not indexed and won't appear in Google, but either we think that is your intention or we think it's the right thing to do. For example, the page has the no index directive, your choice, or the page is a duplicate of another page, Google's choice. You can watch the index coverage episode in this series to understand more about the issues affecting your site and learn how to validate a fix you have implemented. To debug an issue with a specific page, for example, a page Google is showing an error in the coverage report, you should use the Inspect URL tool. You can use it to learn the current index status of your pages, to test a live URL, to ask Google to crawl a specific page, and to view detailed information about the page's loaded resources and other information. You can access the tool from the top bar, from the sidebar, and you'll also see a little magnifying glass next to URLs in some reports. For example, if you drill down to a URL from the index coverage report, you can click to inspect it. Once the page displays the results, you will see 3 different sections, all of them presenting information from Google's last crawl or crawl attempt. If you recently made changes to the page, you might want to check if they're working as intended by clicking Test Live URL and comparing the live version to the indexed one. In the Presence on Google card, you'll get a verdict on whether or not the URL can appear in Google search results. There are 2 important options available for developers in this card. First, if you made a change to the page and want to request Google to re-index it, use Request Indexing. Second, you can click View Crawled Page to check the HTML version that Google indexed and more information on the HTTP response and loaded resources. In the coverage section, you'll learn where the page was discovered, such as a sitemap or a referring page, when was the last crawl and by which user agent, and whether the page is included in the Google index or another version of it was chosen as the canonical. In the enhancements section, you'll find any structured data details along with AMP and mobile usability warnings and errors. For example, if your page is not marked up properly with structured data, the inspection will return an error detailing the missing or wrong values. You can watch the Inspect URL episode in this series to learn how to use the tool to debug and fix any issues you find. Search Console also includes 2 reports that will help you optimize your site's health: Security Issues and Core Web Vitals. The Search Console Security Issues report shows warnings when Google finds that your site might have been hacked or used in ways that could potentially harm a visitor or their device. For example, a hacker might inject malicious code in your pages to redirect your users to another site or to automatically create pages on your site with nonsensical sentences filled with keywords. These are examples of website hacking. An attacker might also trick users into doing something dangerous, such as revealing confidential information or downloading malicious software. That's called social engineering. When you log into Search Console, you'll already be notified in the overview page if you have security issues on your site. Clicking the alert will lead you to the Security Issues report, where you'll find a list of all security issues Google found in your website. In the report, you'll find more details about the type of threat, a sample of pages affected by it, and a process for you to inform Google when you fix the issues. I recorded an episode about the security issues report with Aurora Morales, my colleague from the Trust and Safety team. Check it out for more details. Lastly, the Core Web Vitals report shows how your pages perform based on real-world usage data, sometimes called field data. The report is based on 3 metrics. LCP, or largest contentful paint, is the amount of time it takes to render the largest content element visible in the viewport, starting from when the user requests the URL. This is important because it tells the reader that the URL is actually loading. FID, or first input delay, is the time from when a user first interacts with your page, when they click the link or tap the button, to the time when the browser responds to that interaction. This is important on pages where the user needs to do something, because this is when the page has become interactive. CLS, or cumulative layout shift, is the amount that the page layout shifts during the loading phase. The score is rated from 0 to 1, where 0 means no shifting and 1 means the most shifting. This is important because having elements shift while a user is trying to interact with the page is very annoying. I'm sure you will agree. Log into Search Console and navigate to the Core Web Vitals report. You'll see that the report is broken down by mobile and desktop. Open one of them to see an aggregate report with more details. By default, the chart shows trends for pages with poor performance, but you can click on Need Improvement and Good to check their trends too. Be aware that if a page does not have a minimum amount of reporting data for any of these metrics, it is omitted from the report, so you probably won't see all your pages. Click an issue in the table to drill down. In this report, you'll find more details about the issue, a chart showing trends, and a table with sample URLs. Check the links in the description to find out more about the Core Web Vitals report. You might also like to check out tools such as Lighthouse before you deploy changes to production. With that, I'll end this video. It's too long already, and even if you drank coffee in the beginning, the effect is probably starting to die away. To recap, use the index coverage report to understand site-wide search indexing issues. Use the URL inspection tool to debug page-level search indexing issues. Use the security issues report to find and fix threats affecting your site. And use the Core Web Vitals report to make sure your website provides a great page experience to your users. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll discuss the main questions you should be thinking about if you're responsible for an e-commerce website. Have you implemented basic SEO for your site? Can Google find and show your website properly in search results? And how is your website content performing in Google search results? Before we get into Search Console, I would like to give a few best practices for e-commerce websites to succeed in search. Some of the tips here require changes to the website, so you might need the help of a developer to implement them. The first step to help people find and navigate your e-commerce website is to clearly publish all of the products you sell, whether in-store, online, or both. This will help Google index that information and serve it to users searching for products to buy. Typically, this means creating pages on your site that explain the products you sell. These pages are commonly referred to as product detail pages, or PDP. Here are some tips to create good content for those pages. Add product pictures that clearly display the product, with muted or transparent backgrounds and from different angles. This helps your website visitors decide what to buy and may attract Google users searching for product images. Add a detailed description of the products and emphasize any features and specifications. This helps users find your products by searching for the details both on your internal search and on Google. Add information on purchase details such as availability, price, shipment, and taxes. This will inform users on how to pay and when they can get the product delivered. And add customer ratings and reviews to help shoppers with their product research and purchase decisions. While working on your product detail pages, we also recommend adding product structure data to them. This will enable Google to provide enhanced search and image results for your site. If you implement the markup properly, users can see price, availability, and review ratings right in Google search results. Read more about product structure data in the link provided in the video description. You may also want to upload your complete product inventory to Google Merchant Center, both for products sold online and offline. This approach has a few advantages. You can update data faster, like prices and stock levels. You can supply richer data like locality information for inventory. And you have more control over your data by pushing it to Google when it changes, rather than waiting for Google to crawl your website. In case you have implemented structured data and uploaded a feed to Merchant Center, Google will generally prioritize the data from the feed. Check the link in the description to learn more about Merchant Center and to find the supported languages and currencies. While not really related to search, you should consider setting up Google Analytics e-commerce tracking to better understand your users' behavior. This will enable you to analyze your site's average order value, e-commerce conversion rate, time to purchase, and other interesting information. These are just a few tips on ways to optimize your e-commerce website. But there is lots more to learn. Check out the links in the description for more resources. Now, let's talk about Search Console. I'm assuming you have verified your website in Search Console already. If not, check out my video explaining all ways to verify your website. It is important to make sure that your structured data is working as intended. When Search Console detects a new structured data type on your site, you'll see a report summarizing errors, warnings, and valid items of that type in your Search Console property. And site owners will get an email that Google detected a new data type on your site. After implementing product structured data, as I mentioned a while ago, open the products report on Search Console. By default, you'll see the trends for error items in the main chart, but you can also click Valid with warnings and Valid to check their trends in the chart and more details in the table. Errors disqualify your structured data from being used in rich results, but the page can still be shown for relevant search results as a plain blue link. For example, if your markup is missing the price, currency, or rating value fields, those would show up as errors in Search Console, and you won't get a fancy rich result. But you can still get a plain blue link. Warnings can provide a somewhat reduced experience for users, but your products may still show up as rich results in search. Examples of warnings would be missing description, review, URL, or brand. Check the link to the rich result status reports in the description to learn more about errors and warnings. To get more details on a specific issue, click an item in the table to open a detailed report. Here, you'll see the date when the issue was detected, the number of affected instances over time, and examples of pages where Google detected it. You can click a sample URL to check instances of the error in your HTML code. Now that you know what needs to be fixed, you have two options. Make the required code changes yourself, or share the details with a developer that can perform code changes to your website. You can do that by creating a link using the Share button. After you or your developer have fixed the error, click Validate Fix, and Google will validate your changes. In addition to the Search Console interface, you can also use the Rich Results test to check structured data validity of a given page on your site. This tool can check the syntax of your structured data, and in some cases provide a sample of what the result might look like in Google search. After setting up your pages and seeing them get indexed, your next step is to monitor their performance. You can check out my previous video on the performance report for a more comprehensive overview, but I thought I'll give some e-commerce specific tips in this video. First, open Search Console and navigate to the performance report. You'll find a series of tables and charts showing how your website is performing on search. You should look for patterns in your data that show how important a specific segment of traffic is. Here are 4 ideas you can start with. Check the queries driving traffic to your website. Are people searching for your business name, specific products, or the general kind of product you offer? Consider adding content to certain areas of your site to optimize your performance on search for queries you want to focus on. Check the click-through rate or CTR for your most important product detail pages. If you see that the CTR is low for those pages, meaning that users are not clicking on your search results, consider writing better descriptions or titles, or adding structured data to those pages. Check if a specific group of pages are not driving product results, which could uncover opportunities to enhance your structured data implementation. For example, you might find that some products are not driving rich results, which could point to a specific template that is missing structured data. And check search appearance to see in a glance the volume of traffic coming to your website through product rich results. To understand your product rich result performance over time, click Product Results in the table to add a filter including only this search result type. This will update your performance charts to show your product results traffic by queries, pages, countries, and devices. That's it. I hope this video helped you understand a little more about how to succeed on search if you're an e-commerce website. In summary, make sure to check the SEO basics in your product detail pages. Consider uploading your complete product inventory to Google Merchant Center. Implement product structure data to be eligible to Google search rich results. Use Search Console to monitor structured data issues and analyze your website performance with rich results. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And in this video, I'll discuss a few best practices for governments and authority entities to make information more visible on Google search. Many times the advice is similar to the advice we give to other websites, but I'll try to focus on what's most relevant to you. I'll discuss 3 topics: optimizing your site appearance on Google search, making sure Google can find and index your pages, and analyzing queries that you're ranking for and queries that you're not. Let's start with some search engine optimization basics you should implement on your site. These are best practices to optimize your content appearance and findability on Google search. Create unique, accurate page titles. A title tag in your page HTML tells both users and search engines what the topic of a particular page is. When your page appears in a search result, the content of the title tag may appear prominently in the search result snippet. So it should be both short and informative. If the title is too short, too long, or otherwise deemed less relevant, Google may show only a portion of it or one that's automatically generated. Google may also show different titles depending on user queries or devices. Use the description meta tag. A description meta tag in your HTML page gives Google a summary of what the page is about. While the title should be only a few words or a short phrase, the description may be as long as a paragraph. Description meta tags are important because Google might use them as snippets for your pages. So make sure to write a description that would both inform and interest the users. Use heading tags to emphasize important text. Use meaningful headings throughout your content to indicate important topics and create a hierarchical structure for your pages. This will make it easier for users and search engines to navigate through your content, especially if your pages are very long. Improve site navigation with internal links. Government websites usually provide guidance on multiple subjects to a broad audience. This can make it hard for users and search engines to understand where to find content and what is most important. To help with that, first make it easy for users to distinguish between regular text and links. You don't want users to miss the links. And second, use descriptive text in the links. This will help users and Google understand what the linked pages are about. In addition, your site's information hierarchy will help make it clear what is most important and how to navigate between sections. You should start by making sure the site navigation menu has all the important sections, and also by providing breadcrumbs on the top of your pages. Add structured data to your pages. Structured data is code that you can add to your pages to describe your content to search engines. Google uses this information to display your content in useful ways, such as rich results. There's several types of structured data governments can potentially use. Here are 3 ideas. Frequently asked questions or FAQs for pages providing information on areas where users might have recurring questions. How-to for pages where you have step-by-step guidance on how to do something like getting a certificate, a visa, or a permit. And breadcrumbs to help describe how your website is organized. For more best practices, check the SEO Starter Guide linked in the description. It's long, but it can be a valuable resource. After optimizing your content, make sure that Google can find and index your pages. These can be easily uncovered using the Index Coverage Report. Log into Search Console and find the report in the sidebar. When you open it, the default view shows a summary of indexing errors on your website. Click to show valid with warnings, valid, and excluded pages too. Here's what each status means. Errors prevent pages from being indexed. Pages with errors won't appear in Google, which can mean a loss of traffic to your website. Valid with warnings are pages that may or may not be shown on Google, depending on the issue, but we think there is a problem that you should look into. Valid pages have been indexed and can be shown on Google search. Excluded pages were not indexed and won't appear in Google, but either we think that is your intention or we think it's the right thing to do. Clicking a row in the table will lead you to a more detailed report showing examples of pages that are affected and provide more information on the issue. Here, you can also grab a link using the share button to share the details with a developer that can perform code changes to your website. After you or your developer have fixed the error, click Validate Fix and Google will validate your changes. You can watch the index coverage episode in this series to understand more about the issues affecting your site and learn how to validate a fix you have implemented. To help search engines discover all your content, it's very useful to tell them which pages, images, and videos to crawl on your website. This is done by submitting a sitemap. If you have a sitemap, you can submit it to Google and track its status using the Sitemaps report on Search Console. If you submit a sitemap using this report, you can see whether we were able to read it, when we read it, and more. To learn more about sitemaps and how to track their status using Search Console, check the links in the description. Now that you've checked that your pages are being crawled, indexed, and served optimally, it's time to analyze how well your pages are performing using the performance report. Here, you'll find a chart summarizing impressions, clicks, average click-through rate, and average position of your site in search results. Below the chart, you'll see a list of queries that users click to reach your website. You can change tabs to view the information broken down by pages, countries, and search appearance. Here are 4 things to look for when analyzing your performance data. If the number of impressions is significantly higher than clicks, or, in other words, if the click-through rate or CTR is very low for a query or a page, you might need to create better titles and descriptions to make your snippets more attractive in search results. If search queries that you expect to see don't appear, your site might not have enough useful content relevant to those queries. If important pages on your site are not in the pages list, there might be an issue with them. In that case, you should use Inspect URL to find out why. Check how many queries show your site when the user does or does not include your site's name. This might show interesting areas where people are searching for content directly related to your site. Those are just a few examples of what information you can learn from the default reports. Check out my previous video on the performance report for a more comprehensive overview on how to use the report to analyze your organic search performance. Before I end this video, I want to discuss one last tool that might be helpful for you. Google Trends provides access to a largely unfiltered sample of actual search requests made to Google. It's anonymized, categorized, and aggregated. This allows us to display interest in topics from around the globe or down to city level. The data can be useful for governments in many ways. Here are two ideas. Check top queries in your region and compare it to the queries you're getting traffic from, the ones we just discussed from the performance report. If there are queries missing from your traffic, check if you have content on that subject and make sure it's being crawled and indexed. Check related queries to important topics you're interested in. This might surface rising queries and help you prepare your site for them, for example, by adding content related to it. Try out by visiting trends.google.com. It's pretty fun and insightful. Hopefully this video helped you optimize your site for search and monitor its performance if you're a government website. To recap, optimize your site appearance on Google Search with SEO best practices. Make sure Google can find and index your pages. Analyze queries that you're ranking for and queries that you're not. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll talk about how to use Search Console if you work for a non-profit organization. Search Console is a free tool from Google that helps you understand how you're performing on Google Search and what you can do to improve your appearance on search to bring more relevant traffic to your website. You probably have limited time to dive in, so one step at a time. Here's how to get started. Make sure Google can find and read your pages. Monitor your site's performance to find new opportunities on Google Search, and learn about optimizing your site for search. I'll try to explain each of those as simply as possible, so stay with me. If you've never used Search Console, you'll first need to verify ownership of your site. There's several ways to do this, so don't worry. Check out my previous video to find out more about verification methods and best practices. It will help you choose the one that's right for you. Google is constantly crawling the web to discover new and updated pages and compile a massive index of all the words it sees and their location on each page. When a user enters a query, Google machines search the index for matching pages and return the results we believe are the most relevant to the user. The Search Console Index Coverage Report will give you an overview of all the pages Google indexed or tried to index in your site. Log into Search Console and find the report in the sidebar. The default view shows a summary of errors on your site. Click the tabs to show valid with warnings, valid, and excluded pages too. Here's what each status means. Errors prevent pages from being indexed. An error means the page won't appear in Google, which can mean a loss of traffic to your website. Ideally, you should fix most of the errors on your site to improve your coverage in search. Valid with warnings are pages that may or may not be shown on Google, depending on the issue, but we think there is a problem that you should look into. Valid pages have been indexed and can be shown on Google Search. So good job. Excluded pages were not indexed and won't appear in Google, but we think that is your intention. An example might be a donation details form that shouldn't appear in search results. Clicking a row in the table will lead you to a more detailed view showing examples of pages with that issue and more information on the error or warning. Here, you can also grab a link using the share button to share the details with a developer that can help you fix your site. After you or your developer have fixed the issue, click Validate Fix and Google will validate your changes. You can watch my previous video on the Index Coverage Report to understand more about the issues affecting your site and learn how to validate a fix you have implemented. Another very useful report is the Search Performance Report. This report shows how much traffic you're getting from Google Search, including breakdowns by queries, pages, and countries. For each of those breakdowns, you can see trends for impressions, clicks, and other metrics. Here are 3 things to look for when reviewing your performance data. If the number of impressions is significantly higher than clicks for a query or a page, you might need to create better page titles and descriptions to make your site more attractive to users in search results. If search queries that you expect to see don't appear, your site might not have enough useful content relevant to those queries. Check how many queries show your site when the user does or does not include your nonprofit's name. These might show interesting areas where people are searching for content directly related to your site. Those are just a few examples of what information you can learn from the default reports. Check out my previous video on the performance report for a more comprehensive overview of how to use the report to analyze your Google search performance. Search engine optimization, or SEO, is the process of increasing the visibility of website pages on search engines in order to attract more relevant traffic. It can involve changes to both the content and the structure of your pages. Here are some examples of SEO best practices. You might need a developer to help you implement those. Create high-quality content that is factually accurate, clearly written, and comprehensive. Write unique page titles and description meta tags for each of your pages. These are HTML elements that tell users and search engines what the topic of a particular page is. Use headings to emphasize important text in your pages. And make your website mobile-friendly. Most people are searching on Google using a mobile device. To learn more about the suggestions above and others, check the SEO Starter Guide linked in the description. It's long, but will be worth your while. That was a short introduction. Hopefully, you found some new ways to improve your search appearance on Google Search. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google. And today I'll provide a short introduction to how Google crawls pages and provide definitions for terms such as crawl rate, crawl demand, and crawl budget. Then I'll dive into the Search Console Crawl Stats report, which provides data on crawl requests, average response time, and more. The report contains information for several Google crawlers, but I'll focus on the search aspect of it. As a disclaimer, this presentation will be more relevant if you work with a large website. If you have a site with fewer than a few thousand pages, you do not need to worry about it. But if you ask me, it never hurts to learn something new. Who knows? Your site may become the next big thing. The crawling process begins with a list of web addresses from past crawls and sitemaps provided by site owners. Google uses the web crawlers to visit these addresses, read the information in them, and follow links on those pages. The crawlers will revisit pages already in the list to check if they have changed, and also crawl new pages they discover. During this process, the crawlers have to make important decisions, such as prioritizing when and what to crawl, while making sure the website can handle the server requests made by Google. Crawl demand is how much the content is desired by Google. It is affected by URLs that haven't been crawled by Google before, and by Google's estimation on how often content changes on the known URLs. The successfully crawled pages are processed and passed to Google indexing to prepare their content for serving on Google search results. Google wants to make sure that it doesn't overload your servers, as a good citizen would do. With that in mind, Google computes your site's crawl rate, which represents the maximum number of concurrent connections a crawler may use to crawl your site. This value is calculated by Google periodically, based on your site's responsiveness, or in other words, how much crawling traffic it can handle. If the site is quick and consistent to respond to crawlers,
the rate goes up if there is demand from indexing.
If the site slows down or responds with server errors,
the rate goes down,
and Google crawls less. In rare cases where Google crawlers overload your servers, you can set a crawl rate limit using the crawl rate settings report in Search Console. Taking crawl rate and crawl demand together, we can define crawl budget as the number of URLs Google can and wants to crawl. My colleague, the Gary, wrote a detailed blog post about crawl budget in the Search Central blog. Check it out. To find out how often Google crawls your site and what the responses were, you should use the Search Console Crawl Stats report, which provides statistics about Google's crawling behavior. Here are some questions you can answer with the data provided. What's your site's general availability? What's the average page response for a crawl request? And how many requests were made by Google to your site in the last 90 days? Let's dive in to learn more about the report. Log into Search Console and find the Settings page, where you can open the Crawl Stats report. Note that this report is only available for properties at the domain level. It is not available for properties that include a path. In the summary page, you'll find a lot of information. The main elements are the crawling trends chart, the host status details, and the crawl request breakdown. The chart shows the trends for 3 metrics. The total crawl requests for URLs on your site, whether successful or not. Requests to resources hosted outside of your site are not counted. So if your images are served on another domain, such as a content delivery network or CDN, they will not appear here. The total download size from your site during crawling. If Google cached a page resource that is used by multiple pages, the resource is only requested the first time. And the average page response time for a crawl request to retrieve the page content. This metric does not include retrieving page resources such as scripts, images, and other linked or embedded content. The response time does not account for page rendering time. Look for major spikes, drops, and trends over time in your data. For example, if you see a significant drop in total crawl requests, make sure no one added a new robots text rule to your site. Or maybe your site is responding slowly to Googlebot. This might be understood as a sign your server cannot handle all the requests. Another example would be a consistent increase in average response time. This might not affect your crawl rate immediately, but it's a good indicator that your servers might not be handling all the load. Ultimately, this may affect user experience too. The host status is an easy way for you to check your site's general availability in the last 90 days. If you verified your website as a domain property, you will see all child hosts separately here. This can be very handy to evaluate all your host performance in one place. When you click to get the host status details, you'll find 3 categories. Errors in this section mean Google cannot crawl your site for a technical reason. Robots text fetch tells you the failure rate when crawling your robots text file. Your site is not required to have a robots text file, but it must return a successful response, 200 or 404, when asked for this file. If Googlebot has a connection issue, for example a 503, it will stop crawling your site. DNS resolution tells you when your DNS server didn't recognize your hostname or didn't respond during crawling. If you see an issue here, check with your registrar to make sure your site is correctly set up and that your server is properly connected to the internet. Server connectivity tells you when your server was unresponsive or did not provide a full response for a URL during a crawl. If you're seeing spikes or consistent connectivity issues here, you might need to talk to your provider about increasing your capacity or fixing availability issues. If Google found at least one of those errors on your site in the last week, you will find a warning alerting you of problems last week. Dig deeper into the error and fix it. If Google found at least one error on your site in the last 90 days, but it occurred more than a week ago, you will see a warning that you had problems in the past. You should check your server logs or contact a developer to review what the problems were and decide whether you need to take any action. If Google didn't find any crawl availability issues on your site in the past 90 days, you're all green. Good job. The crawl request cards show several breakdowns to help you understand what Google crawlers found in your website. there are 4 available breakdowns. Crawl response shows the responses that Google received when crawling your site. Common response types would be 200, 301, 404, or server errors. Crawled file type shows file types returned by the request. Common file types would be HTML, image, video, or JavaScript. Crawl purpose could be discovery when a URL is new to Google, or refresh for a recrawl of a known page. And Googlebot type shows the user agent used by Google to make the crawl request. For example, smartphone, desktop, image, and others. Click any row to drill down to that value and review its trends and specific sample URLs. Check out the Help Center article about the crawl stats report to learn more details about it. To recap, crawl budget is the number of URLs Google can and wants to crawl on websites every day. It is relevant to large websites where Google needs to prioritize what to crawl first, how much to crawl, and how frequently to recrawl. To help you understand and optimize Google's crawling, you should use the Search Console Crawl Stats Report. Use the summary page chart to analyze crawling volume and trends. Use the whole status details to check your site's general availability. And use the crawl request breakdowns to understand what Googlebot is finding when crawling your website. Hi, I'm Daniel Weisberg, Search Advocate at Google.
And I'm Hillel Maoz, Engineering Lead for Search Console.
First of all, thanks for joining me today, Hillel.
Thank you, Daniel.
This is the very last episode of the Search Console training series, and we're going into the bits and bytes of the product. And who better than you to talk about it?
Sure, Daniel. Always great to chat about what we do and how we do it.
Today, we'll talk about what happens under the hood in Search Console. We'll focus on 2 areas: how Search Console actually works and how it fits into the search ecosystem, and how we think about features and go about building them.
Before we go into the nuts and bolts of Search Console, it's important to say it out loud what the team is trying to accomplish. Our mission is to provide data and tools to help site owners improve their websites and optimize their appearance on Google. The product extracts important relevant information from Google's search internal systems, reports it to site owners, and enables them to improve their website performance on Google. Now, you may be asking yourself, what exactly is the search ecosystem? Daniel, can you take that one?
Sure. First, there is the web, where millions of websites publish content all the time, including you watching this video right now. Second, there is Google, which crawls the web, finds content, and stores it in the Google index. It extracts all the relevant information from every page so that it can retrieve the best results for user queries on the Google search results page. And third, there are search users looking for answers and navigating from search results to their desired web pages. Search Console is the main communication channel between Google Search and site owners. Basically, you. The tool provides information on how your site performs on search, and it provides technical information on potential issues Google found in your pages. From working together with the team from some time now, I know they're always monitoring Google internal systems and datasets for important website information. They're also tightly integrated with other Google search teams to make sure Search Console is ready for new features. And of course, we keep our ears open to learn what are your needs. There are numerous reports and features on Search Console. We organize them into 3 main groups. The Search Analytics group displays all the relevant user activity data related to website performance in Google Search. The Reporting group focuses on helping you track issues, debug, and validate fixes on specific pages or entire websites. The Configuration group manages site and user configurations as well as alert settings. Hillel, can you give us a little more information about each of those groups?
Sure, Daniel. The Search Analytics group is the part of the team that works on retrieving and reporting data from our internal systems about users' clicks and impressions on search results. There are billions of search results every day, We process that information and store data for every site for a period of 16 months. This information is mainly surfaced through the performance reports, where you can slice and dice the data to learn more about patterns and anomalies in your Google search traffic. The reporting group is the part of Search Console that surfaces how your pages are seen by Google's search. For example, is Google finding all your pages? Are there any errors that prevented Google from crawling your pages? Are there issues with your structured data implementation? Google crawls pages from millions of domains. It looks for hundreds of signals supporting dozens of search features, such as AMP, recipes, and FAQs. The information is available through actionable reports that help you debug, fix, and inform Google to start a validation process for pages you just fixed. We also offer testing tools to enable you to trigger the entire search stack for any given URL. For example, when you type a URL in Inspect URL or the Rich Results test, we run a simulation of the Google index and give you the information we find with high fidelity. This enables site owners to debug any URL on their site easily and effectively. Accounts is the group responsible for managing site and user configurations. Their primary goal is to help site owners verify their sites and get access to their accounts. And of course, to prevent anyone that is not site owner to see your Search Console information. This group also handles all the emails that you receive from Search Console. They do that for dozens of other types across all the different reports, making sure you never miss an important change or update.
Well, now that we know how the Search Console team is organized, let's talk a little bit about how the team develops the reports and tools that you use. The process can be roughly divided into 3 main steps. I know, it's the 3rd time in this video that we've grouped something in 3s. Coincidence? Maybe. The first step is to define what can help a page succeed on search. We check that Google crawls the pages and gets all the content the site wants to share with us. For example, for topics such as mobile friendliness, core web vitals, or structured data, we define all the signals that can validate their implementation in every page. That leads us to the second step, which is to build a pipeline to go over all the pages in the index periodically and classify them against these signals. If we find that a page fails for a specific website, we collect all the relevant details, such as the reason the page couldn't be crawled or why we're unable to use its structured data. And finally, the third step is to build reports to share this information with you using the Search Console interface, which is where you can see this information for your site. For a complete picture, we publish dedicated documentation articles where users can learn about these new reports and better understand the information being displayed. Keep in mind that Google is always evolving, so new opportunities to shine on search arise frequently. Our job as a team is to keep up with these changes and build an effective way for you to leverage new and existing search features to the fullest.
Daniel, before we forget, there's one last point to discuss before we part. The team is always looking for feedback from the search community. You are a valuable source of information to help drive product strategy and improve Search Console. If you have feedback, make sure to submit it through the product or mention us on Twitter.